Greetings class. This video is to talk to you about the proposal assignment. First of all, the course competencies that this covers are listed at the very top if you want to look at the syllabus. Make sure that you read all comments on your thesis statements. I may have said expand, expand your research, your counter arguments missing, whatever it is that I said, pay special attention to that. Depending on which class you're in, those will be graded usually by the Friday of the week this is assigned. Also want to let you know that the due date has been extended on this, so please just look at the due date that's posted on your class list. So I told you to read this first, but I'm going to tell you during this video, before starting this process, look at all comments on graded assignments that have to do with your thesis statement or research ideas. Do not start this assignment without reading those comments. And again, you will have to look and see if your comments have been entered yet. The purpose is to develop ideas on research topics. I want you to expand on this. Make sure that you're writing in college level writing. That does mean, in this case, leaving out contractions. For example, if you write don't, it should actually be do not. So keep all of those all of those out of that. This should also be written in third person. Which is he, she, they. You should avoid first and second person, which is I, we, us, and you. So make sure that you're avoiding those. I will count off for those because you really should be watching the video before doing any proposal assignment. And I do appreciate your time in this. I'll try to make it brief. So this is just about what you're about to do. You are going to find new sources for your topic. So what that's going to do is, if you've already found sources in the area that you're going to do, you're going to have plenty of sources for this paper. So I'm forcing the issue of the research, and that'll also ensure that you have enough information out there to support the topic that you've chosen. So this very first part, and I will put up a PowerPoint, it's called Introductions and Conclusions. You'll be able to look at that. It gives you some templates to use if you struggle with introduction and conclusions. And of course, at this point, this would be, I want you to write it as though you're writing a paper in terms of language and organization of your thoughts. But I also want you to realize that this may not be your final introduction section. It depends on if you find the research you need and things such as that. So what this tells you is you're going to do an introduction. I gave you some ideas on how to do that. And then the thesis should be your last sentence, and you should underline it. That's so that we all know what you think your final thesis might be. Now, again, it's really technically like your last rough draft. So don't stress too much about it, but make sure the wording makes sense. Make sure it is one sentence, not 3 or 4 sentences in a line. You want one sentence. Remember that thesis generator, if you've lost track of that, is the Ashford thesis generator, and you can look that up online and tinker with that to make sure that your thesis is correct. Now, if I've approved your thesis in another assignment, you'll copy and paste it at the end of your introduction. You don't have to rewrite that, and as a matter of fact, you shouldn't if it's already been approved. All right, so as you can see, I want you to leave all of this information inside of your proposal, and I want you to literally type where it says start typing here. So I would start typing, right? And just replace that information. So just so you know. So you don't get rid of anything. And what that does for me is that helps me see your sections. It's very clearly defined. For people who have the organizational issues, it's going to help them organize their overall paper. So this is the section. So you're going to do your full introduction. It does have to be well developed. So I want to make sure that you're developing your paragraphs very, very well. That means that they're not short and choppy, that you have variety in your sentences. So I really want you to be conscious of that effort as you go through this, so that really it would serve, if you're on the right topic, it's been approved and things are going pretty well in your research. This is going to be a rough draft of your introduction, and you want to make it as good as possible. There's no reason to rewrite something, um, if other than proofreading, if you do this really well. So argument points and counter argument. You do have a counter. Remember, that's a concession. That's acknowledging the other side. In this outline, it's at the bottom. So this very first part, it's worth 6 points. I want you to take your time doing this. That's why I've extended the due date to give you time. So please, please make sure that you are very detailed in how you do it. I want you to keep it to a little bit less than a paragraph. So 3 to 5 sentences will do. You're basing this on your support. So this supporting sentence should come from your thesis statement. So make sure that your introduction will talk about the introduction to your topic and all of that, and you'll put in your hook up there and your thesis statement, and then you should be breaking down your points into your outline. So your supporting sentence number 1, your first point in sentence format, that is your first point from your thesis. So you're breaking your thesis down into your outline, into sentence format, which is exactly what I told you would do. So here's 3 to 5 sentences where you talk about that first point, and here's where you copy and paste a link to your source. Do not write this yourself. So it has to be based on something that you found out there. Another tip is make sure that your source is credible. Make sure that the author has some sort of expertise, or somebody who writes about the topic quite often. Make sure that you're not on a website that's selling something. If you go on a website and there's a whole bunch of advertisements, that's usually a bad sign. So kind of avoid things like that. And again, you will literally start typing where it says start typing here. So up here, you'll discuss your first point. You'll type here, then you'll copy and paste your link. Now, if you upload a document, like you have a peer-reviewed journal article, you'll tell me here, you'll put, I uploaded the document. You get 2 points just for doing that correctly. Now, there's a reason that I do that. That's so that if for some reason the database or wherever you found your document disappears off the face of the earth, you've already saved that document in one of the areas on Blackboard. Also, it helps you find stuff when you come back to it. So it's a really useful, in terms of links. You don't have any trouble finding the website that you were on if it's a link to a website or a document. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that you're copying and pasting the entire thing into the document. And you'll do that on each section. So supporting sentence 2, again, this comes straight from your thesis statement. It would be your second point. This sentence should be one sentence that indicates what your full second point will be, including one statistic, quote from an expert, or other form of support. So it's identical to the first point. It's just you're discussing the second one. In other words, write your point in sentence format and list a fact or supporting information from a source to back it up. And this again is just 3 to 5 sentences. You'll literally start typing here, leave everything else intact. Again, you'll copy and paste your link. And so the next point is exactly the same. You'll do the same thing with the third point in your thesis, because you do need at least 3. And if you have trouble meeting the length of the paper later on, you can add more, up to 5. But for now, we're only doing 3. And then you'll copy and paste your link here as well. The counter-argument sentence expresses the opposing viewpoint, so you're actually acknowledging the other side. And if you did your thesis correctly, that would be that very first part. I'm sorry, my bunny's making noise. That would be that first part, like while something, then you do your position and your 3 points, or although something, then your position and 3 points. So it's that beginning part in the way that we structure our thesis statements in this class. This is a little bit shorter because the counter is not your focus, but you do have to acknowledge it. So just make sure that you do so. Down here, you'll copy and paste your link because you do have to have proof that the counter exists. The rebuttal is a response to the counter argument. So, for instance, if you say that, um, school uniforms stifle creativity, which you're not allowed to do something that simple, but if you were, then you would have to respond to that and say, well, there are other ways to express creativity. You would just do it formally. Um, so the length will vary here. It shouldn't be very long. The rebuttal and the counter arguments are really just literally to acknowledge the other side and address that issue. So then you'll copy and paste your source, and here's your conclusion, which is 6 points as well. I'm so sorry. My rabbit is just going at it over there. So she's trying to dig a hole. This section takes the proposal and presents a solution. So you're just going to talk about, okay, I've talked about this problem. Let's think about how we can address this further. This part comes from your brain. Um, first of all, you go ahead and summarize your points, right? You would reiterate your thesis in different words. But I really want this part to focus on in this proposal, because in your paper, you're going to have the whole recap, the restatement of the thesis, anything that needs further discussion kind of thing. So this is where you talk about how can we get started on this problem? How can we get started on this change? What can we do to literally get started? So if I came into a room, you'd say, Ms. Gibbons, we need to go out and do this, right? What is this thing to get started to address the issue that you've discussed? This does have to be at least 5 sentences. It is worth 6 points. And you do have to demonstrate research through documentation here. I'm inclined to give people zeros if they don't put in their sources. There's no reason that you should do any fast work on this because by the time I get into all the comments on the assignments, you'll have well over a week. And I think that's a fair amount of time to get everything done. And then we'll proceed toward the finish line, which will be very exciting. So I appreciate you listening. I hope that you found this helpful. The proposal assignment is very simple in terms of just taking what you already have and breaking it down further and kind of explaining it a little bit more. So I appreciate your attention, and as always, feel free to email me if you have any questions. Thank you.